This game takes a fairly simple idea, but it executes that idea really well. But because that core idea is simple, the game has some flaws. So let's get into it. Pawnbarian is a chess, puzzle game, card game roguelite, and each run has 7 floors, and each floor consists of a 5x5 board with randomized enemies. You're given a couple of cards that you use to move your character around to clear out these enemies while taking as little damage as possible. 2 of the 3 characters in the game use chess pieces, while the third character, the Shogun, uses a unique set of cards and moves. Between each floor, you can buy upgrades that give your character more health, or give one of your cards a couple additional effects. For example, block stacks, an extra move, or causing an AoE attack wherever you land. There are really only 4 possible upgrades for each card, and because of that, there are only a couple minor synergies you can figure out pretty quickly. It's not really a build crafting game. Still, I quite enjoyed this core gameplay loop, which is good because, as we'll talk about, it's a fairly straightforward game. It scratches a nice puzzle game itch, where you plan out exactly how you want to move each turn with your given cards, and the 2 chess-based heroes play sufficiently different from each other. One focuses on upgrading pawns to queens for the more powerful moveset, while the other focuses on the more creative use of knights. I'm actually not sure if this third hero is based on an actual Japanese board game, or if it's just the creation of the developer, but I found this hero much harder to master at first. It's clear what all the cards do, but I just didn't have the same intuition with the cards as I did with chess, because I played a lot of chess before. This final character also has an active power you can use, and that adds a new strategy element to the game as well, which is fun to navigate. And I found that final character just fun to use in general once I got over that learning curve, once I started to understand how to use them. This game also has a nice incentive structure where you get more gold the faster you complete each floor. So it rewards you for doing each floor in as few turns as possible. However, your health also carries over floor to floor, so if you take too much damage early on in a run, you might end up being screwed for the final boss. Additionally, many enemies drop blight on tiles, and standing on blight on the end of your turn means you take damage for how much blight is there. Since blight stacks up over time, there's also an incentive to finish floors faster before that blight adds up and kills you by attrition. Runs in this game are overall pretty short. It usually takes about 15 minutes for me to complete a run, but they might take longer for you if you're more deliberate with your turns. This makes it a good game to pick up for quick play sessions here and there, and that was good for me this holiday season because I played this game a lot while traveling. Now let's talk about variety in Pawnbarian. The variety in this game mainly comes from playing the different heroes or characters and completing the different dungeons on different runs. As I talked about already, the 3 characters actually do feel surprisingly different from each other, especially the mechanics of the third Shogun character were pretty unique. There are also 3 unique dungeons in the game that you can clear, and each of the 3 dungeons focuses on a new enemy type and theme. Mostly, each dungeon focuses on one new mechanic for their enemies. So, for example, there are spark effects in the second dungeon, which are enemy effects that activate with specific trigger conditions, and there are void effects in the third dungeon, which move or deal damage to your character after you kill enemies. Because each dungeon has that different mechanic, they all require a slightly different strategy in order to complete them. Each dungeon also has a final boss that emphasizes that dungeon's main mechanic in a unique and enjoyable way. That being said, as a whole, there isn't that much variety compared to other roguelites out there. You'll see most of what the game has to offer, variety-wise, after a couple hours. There is a mastery curve, of course. You won't master the game in those couple hours, but you will see all the enemy types and class variety. Also, most of the variety in the game comes from before run choices, so which class you'll be playing and what dungeon you want to clear. With in-run variety, mostly comes in the form of what units you run across, what enemies you run across, and their placements. There is enough variety there to help with that puzzle quality, and sometimes units have secondary, additional randomized effects, but it's not enough variety to make each run feel super distinct after you've gotten the hang of the game in the first place. This also means that you're never heavily impacted by RNG within each run, either positively or negatively. It's a very skill-focused roguelite. It's really focused on that mastery quality. The main exception here is that there are a couple turns where you might draw cards that don't give you a valid move, which means you're stuck, you can't do anything that turn. That usually means you lose a lot of health that turn, but that's only happened to me a couple of times, though it was frustrating each time it happened. I would really love to see this game add another character or another dungeon that adds a new mechanic. I'm not really sure how realistic that is, but I think the core formula is fun. I just want to see some more content build on that. Pawnbarian is a game that really only has one main form of progression across runs. You do first have to unlock all 3 characters, but that took me less than an hour. After that, the only main form progression comes in the form of chain levels. After you clear all 3 dungeons for a given chain level, you move on to the next one and try to clear all 3 dungeons again at that higher difficulty. Each chain level adds a new challenge that stacks with previous challenges, similar to ascension levels in roguelites like Slay the Spire. These chain levels are really good because once you understand the core mechanics, the basic combos, it's really not that hard to clear all 3 dungeons on the lowest difficulty. I cleared every dungeon with every character in about 4 hours on Chain 0, so I was climbing up those difficulty levels pretty quickly. You can also keep playing levels after beating them if you want endless mode. I did this a couple times, but generally, I prefer to climb the difficulty levels as opposed to continuing on an endless run. Also, quick aside, this game has no story, it has no lore, but you know, it's a roguelite, so that's fine. So what's my verdict on Pawnbarian? Like I said at the beginning, this game executes a simple idea really well. It's a puzzle game with chess and card game elements. I like this core gameplay loop, and the quick runs made it ideal for quick sessions. Still, it's a pretty simple idea and straightforward gameplay loop. You're just not going to find any real build crafting, you're not going to find that deep enemy variety, and you'll see most of what the game has to offer in a couple hours. Because of that, it's not going to be one of my most played roguelites, but it will be a roguelite that I pick up on occasion to scratch that puzzle game itch. At $10, it might be worth picking up if that core gameplay loop interests you. Huge shout out to all of our channel members. If you want to support the channel financially, consider joining as a channel member to help me keep bringing you guys these reviews. Thanks for watching.